A belief in the geometric underpinning of the cosmos persisted among scientists. According to Stephen Skinner, the study of sacred geometry has its roots in the study of nature and the mathematical principles at work therein. Many forms observed in nature can be related to geometry. For example, the chambered nautilus grows at a constant rate, and so its shell forms a logarithmic spiral to accommodate the growth without changing shape. Also, honeybees construct hexagonal cells to hold their honey. These and other correspondences are seen by believers in sacred geometry to be further proof of the cosmic signature of geometric forms. Geometric ratios and geometric figures were often employed in the design of Egyptian, ancient Indian, Greek, and Roman architecture. Medieval European cathedrals also incorporated symbolic geometry. Indian and Himalayan spiritual communities often constructed temples temples and fortifications on design plans of mandala and yantra. Many of the sacred geometry principles of the human body and of ancient architecture have been compiled into the Vitruvian man drawing by Leonardo da Vinci, itself based on the much older writing of the Roman architect Vitruvius. Stephen Skinner suggests that it is possible to place a geometric diagram over virtually any image of a natural object or human creature structure and find some lines intersecting the image. If the geometric diagram does not intersect major physical points in the image, the result is what Skinner calls unanchored geometry. Pythagoras is often credited for discovering that an oscillating string stopped halfway along its length produces an octave relative to the string's fundamental, while a ratio of 2:3 produces a perfect fifth and 3:4 produces a perfect fourth. However, the Chinese culture already featured the same mathematical positions on the guqin and the tone holes in flutes, so Pythagoras was not the first. Pythagoreans believed that these harmonic ratios gave music power of healing, which could harmonize an out-of-balanced body. In mathematics and the arts, two quantities are in the golden ratio. If their ratio is the same as the ratio of their sum to their maximum. The figure on the right illustrates the geometric relationship expressed algebraically for quantities A and B with A, B. Okay. The golden ratio is also called the golden section, Latin sectio aurea, or golden mean. Other names include extreme and mean ratio, medial section, divine proportion, divine section. In Latin, sectio divina, golden proportion, golden cut, and golden number. Many artists and architects have proportioned their works to approximate the golden ratio, especially in the form of the golden rectangle, in which the ratio of the longer side to the shorter is the golden ratio, believing this proportion to be aesthetically pleasing. Mathematicians since Euclid have studied the properties of the golden ratio, including its appearance in the dimensions of a regular pentagon and in a golden rectangle, which can be cut into a square and a smaller rectangle with the same aspect ratio. The golden ratio has also been used to analyze the proportions of natural objects as well as man-made systems such as financial markets, in some case based on dubious fits to data. The golden ratio has fascinated Western intellectuals of diverse interests for at least 2,400 years, according to Mario Livio. Some of the greatest mathematical minds of all ages, from Pythagoras and Euclid in ancient Greece through the medieval Italian mathematician Leonardo of Pisa and the Renaissance astronomer Johannes Kepler, to present-day scientific figures such as Oxford physician Robert Penrose, have spent endless hours over this simple ratio and its properties. But the fascination with the golden ratio is not confined just to mathematicians. Biologists, artists, musicians, historians, architects, psychologists, and even mystics have pondered and debated the basis of the ubiquity of its ubiquity and appeal. In fact, it is probably fair to say that the golden ratio has inspired thinkers of all disciplines like no other number in the history of mathematics. Ancient Greek mathematicians first studied what we now call the golden ratio because of its frequent appearance in geometry. The division of a line into extreme and mean ratio, the golden section, is important in the geometry of regular pentagrams and pentagons. The Greeks usually attributed discoveries of this concept to Pythagoras or his followers. Euclid's Elements provides the first known written definition of what is now called the golden ratio. A straight line is said to have been cut in extreme and mean ratio when, as the whole line is to the greater segment, so is the greater to the less. Euclid explains a construction for cutting, sectioning a line in extreme and mean ratio, i.e. the golden ratio. Throughout the Elements, several propositions, theorems in modern terminology, and their proofs employ the golden ratio. The golden ratio is explored in Luca Pancioli's book De Divina Proportione of 1509. The first known approximation of the inverse golden ratio by a decimal fraction stated as about 0.618030 was written in 1597 by Michael Muslin of the University of Tübingen in a letter to his former student Johannes Kepler. Since the 20th century, the golden ratio has been represented by the Greek letter by the Greek letter phi after Phidias, a sculptor who is said to have employed it, or less commonly by tau, the first letter of the ancient Greek root toi, or meaning cut. Alright. Timeline according to Priya Hemway. Phidias, 490 to 430 BC, made the Pythian statues that seem to embody the golden ratio. Plato, 427 to 347 BC, in his Timaeus, describes 5 possible regular solids: the Platonic solids, the tetrahedron, cube, octahedron, dodecahedron, and icosahedron, some of which are related to the golden ratio. Euclid, circa 325 through circa 265 BC, in his Elements, gave the first recorded definition of the golden ratio, which he called, as translated into English, extreme and mean ratio. Fibonacci, 1170 to 1250, mentioned the numerical series, now named after him, in his Liber Abaci. The ratio of subsequential elements of the Fibonacci sequence approaches the golden ratio asymptotically. Another big word. Okay, then you have Luca Pacioli, 1445 to 1517, defines the golden ratio as the divine proportion in the Divina Proportion. Now you have Michael Muslin, 1550 to 1631, publishes the first known approximation of the inverse golden ratio as a decimal fraction. Johannes Kepler, 1571 to 1630, proves that the golden ratio is the limit of the ratio of consecutive Fibonacci numbers, and describes the golden ratio as a precious jewel. Geometry has 2 great treasures. One is the theorem of Pythagoras, and the other is the division of a line into extreme and mean ratio. The first we may compare to a measure of gold. The second we may name a precious jewel. These 2 treasures are combined in the Kepler triangle. Charles Bonnet, 1720 to 1793, points out in his spiral phyllotaxis of plants going clockwise and counterclockwise were frequently 2 successive Fibonacci series.